Alexis de Tocqueville. Wise words. America is great because she is good. If America ceases to be good, America will cease to be great. "20,000 charming children would all too soon grow into 20,000 ugly adults. A stain on America's past that should not be cherished, but bleached out. Those who don't remember past history, they are doomed to repeat it." I will read an article of recent history from Oxy.com, written by Sean Braswell. This is a history lesson that we should all remember that can be verified from many different sources. My position should shine forth like a light upon a hill because it is intentional. Here's the article. On the evening of November 9, 1938, a wave of violence against Jews swept across Nazi Germany, one that would result in hundreds of Jewish synagogues and businesses being destroyed and tens of thousands of Jews being sent to concentration camps. Kristallnacht, or Night of Broken Glasses, shocked the world and some nations. Great Britain sprang to action to assist the German Jews fleeing Nazi pogroms. Within days, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and his cabinet approved the admission of Jewish refugee children. A couple of weeks later, the first train carrying hundreds of children from a burned orphanage left for England. With an estimated 60,000 Jewish children at risk, all eyes turned to the United States, a nation founded by immigrants to save thousands more of those children from Nazi persecution. But in what remains of one of the more egregious examples of Americans' dismal history of offering asylum to refugees fleeing violence, Uncle Sam sat on his hands. The number of people displaced by World War II was unprecedented, and as called Bon Tempo chronicles in Americans at the Gate, the European refugee crisis had been growing precipitously before 1938. Yet U.S. immigration laws remain restrictive, adhering to a rigid quota system established in the 1920s that admitted a fixed number of immigrants based on their country of origin. And with Americans still reeling from the Great Depression, there was very little appetite in Washington for relaxing immigration quotas, even when a humanitarian crisis like few others came knocking on America's door. By 1939, U.S. officials have received more than 125,000 visa applications, many from Germany and occupied Austria. And the Congress and President Franklin Delano Roosevelt were under pressure to relax the annual quota for German and Austrian immigrants, then set at 27,000. A bipartisan bill crafted by Senator Robert Wagner, a New York Democrat, and Representative Edith Rogers, a Massachusetts Republican, was put forward in early 1939 that would admit 20,000 child refugees to the United States over and beyond existing quotas. The Wagner-Rogers proposal was carefully couched as a humanitarian effort was not limited to Jewish children, and it was even specified that the costs would fall on private source, not the government. But the bill says Bontempo, a professor at the University of Albany, SUNY, goes nowhere. It doesn't even make it out of the committee. Why on earth not? For starters, the issues was a non-starter with the US public, despite the fact that over 1,400 Americans had written to Congress offering to adopt refugee children. In a January 1939 Gallup poll, almost two-thirds of respondents opposed allowing 10,000 German refugee children into the country. And in an April 14 poll that year, 83% said that the cap on European refugees should not be lifted. Americans in the West and South were particularly opposed to the measures, and members of Congress from those states held key positions on the committees considering the Wagner-Rogers bill. Besides, concern about newcomers taking American jobs and limited public resources, there was also a strain on anti-Semitism underlining the Americans' first opposition. 20,000 charming children, argued Laura Delano Hortinling, FDR's cousin and wife of U.S. Immigration Commissioner, would all too soon grow into 20,000 ugly adults. 20,000 charming children would all too soon grow into 20,000 ugly adults. FDR himself took no public stand on the issue, and we know that despite First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt pushing him, the president did little to aid the refugee bill. Concerned with the broader landscape of Americans' foreign policy, national security, and trying to nudge the nation into a more active posture toward war in Europe, Roosevelt, say Bontempo, make a political calculation that he would arouse too many opponents by relaxing immigration quotas. Still, FDR did not ignore the issue. He ordered the INS and State Department to be as generous as possible within existing quotas. And while only 5,200 of the 27,000 quota space were taken up in 1935, by the end of 1939, they were all taken, and more, around 33,000. Thank God. I will make only one comment. It is wise to study history so we don't make the same mistake again. I did not even touch on the righteous demand of God, which is the lifeblood of my reasoning.